Hello world, my name is Klaus Rostel and I'm doing 100 innovation keynotes in 100 days. Today's number 58. Today I'm going to talk about recharging your creative batteries. Now first, let's define what batteries means in this case. It's not going to be about psychology, I'm not going to talk about brain chemistry, I'm not going to define creativity even. In fact, I'm not even going to use a little bit of theory. Not that I don't like theory, I do, but not for this. What I'm going to do, well, I'm going to give you some, let's call them navigation tips. Some simple hands-on things you can do. You can do tomorrow or later today if you're watching this talk during the day. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 13 tips from me, Klaus Rostel, and then you can decide what to do with them. First things first, I'm sad to say there will be no more cool pictures of lightning. Not because lightning doesn't look cool on pictures, it really does. And because there are plenty of them out there, plenty of free pictures of cool lightning, but just because I realized as I was putting this talk together that if I wanted cool pictures of lightning, I'd get caught up in that and try to make them fit whatever point I was trying to make. So, no more cool pictures of lightning. I'm sorry. Now, the first tip, relax, just chill out. Watch some TV, watch some Netflix, read a book, hang out with your kids, talk with a friend, visit your family, do something that is like, sit in your hot tub if you have one. Simple, easy, but actually a pretty good way of recharging creative batteries. So of course I'm going to mention. Tip number 2, relax, but don't chill out. Play some music, bang away on your drums, go do some sports, run a marathon. Okay, that's maybe not relaxing, but go running, do something where you're concentrating on something else. Play a video game. Something where you're relaxing, yes, but you're not just chilling out. You're like actively concentrating on something else. It can be physical. It can be mental. That's fine. But it's also a way of doing that. Number 3, work on something else. There was a point in my life, not right now, but there was a point in my life some years back where I had so many projects going on that when I got tired of one project, I just jump and work on another project. So all the time I was working on stuff because I was procrastinating. I didn't want to work on this, so I worked on this, and then I got tired of this, and then I worked on this, and I got tired of this, and I worked on this. But because I had so many projects, I was procrastinating all the time, but I got stuff done at an alarming rate because everything I did was working on something that I wanted to work on instead of the thing I should be working on. And by some bizarre, magic, I managed to kind of keep decently producing stuff, or actually more than decently producing stuff, because working on something else is a great way to get re-inspired. Now, you could also work with someone else, and this is not necessarily the same thing. Sometimes they're the same, not always. Working with someone else, why is this a good source of inspiration? Well, because people are different. They inspire us in different ways. There's the nice, cute saying of, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, right now, I'm spending a lot of time with a 2-year-old, and while she's a crazy tornado of energy, I hope that she's not 20% of what I am. And if she is, then I feel it must be really tough for the people who have like triplets or something, 3 kids at home. That must be crazy. Anyway, the central point is working with different people provides you with different inspiration because they think differently. Of course, they talk differently. They look at problems in a different way. If you're stuck on something, if you're like, I have lost all creative juices, I have no more ideas, then work with somebody else or take a challenge with somebody else, and they're like, they'll be inspiring because they'll say, what about this? What about that? No, never this. Have you considered that? So simple and easy. Work on something else, maybe. Work with someone else, also good. This is where we get really hands-on and simple. And I'm going to say a lot of stuff here that, yes, you know this, and yes, you've thought of this, and that's fine. Just proves you're just as smart as I am, but we knew that already. Tip number 5, seek out interesting knowledge. And what do I mean by that? One of the things that I spend a ton of time on, I don't know, an hour a day, something like that, on just finding out new stuff. What's going on with China? What's new in telehealth? Where are things going on kind of the whole wind power? What about airships? Are they coming back? Seeking out interesting knowledge. And to give you a good example, one of the things I'm watching right now is I found this short 1-2 minute videos done by a Chinese American professor, Hakon Jung, something like that. And he talks about different aspects of China. He delivers these 1 to 2 minutes, very sharp, very well produced on something called Curiosity Streams. And I just gobble them up because I can open up my phone. And then 2 minutes later, I've learned something new. I learned something recently about Chinese urbanization that I didn't know. That urbanization in China, just to give you an example, urbanization in China has been rapid for many, many years. This I did know. What I didn't know was that the huge, unskilled kind of underclass of workers that was there they're now scarce. So right now, the chance of being out of a job in China, if you have a college degree, is 4 times as high than if you don't have a college degree. And that to me was fascinating because in most of the world, it's the people with no degrees who suffer the most and who have the hardest time getting a job, let alone a well-paid one. So this for me, just this small tiny tidbit, super fascinating. And I got it because I'm constantly seeking out new interesting things. Number 6, if you don't want to do the 1 or 2 minute kind of quick, fast, dirty info, look at the TED Talk, check out this thingy, look at a Wikipedia page, whatever it is. The deep dives. Oh, I love that. I don't have time for as many as I'd want to, but I love that. Recently, I watched a 6-part documentary series on Disney Imagineering, on the people who created the Disney theme parks, the people who kind of are this whole inside of the Disney empire. They're this whole creative force. Now, I know a couple of the people who work in Imagineering. I know some of the projects, and I knew some of the history, but this 6 times 1 hour deep dive into the history of Imagineering, that was fascinating, and it gave me so many ideas. It gave me so much like, wow, why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I know that? Why wasn't I aware of this way of looking at the world? Super fascinating, super good for like boosting creative juice. Now I know it's easy to say, but this was Disney. But yes, I could just as well have taken a 4-hour look at the building of big dams in South America and in China. Another thing I did recently. So deep dives, super, super cool because you get past the surface. You get to like the people saying, then we put the thing here and we press the button there, instead of just saying, we made magic, which is nice, but it's not the same thing. Number 7. You can create a work of art, even if it sucks. There's so many people out there who are, I'm not going to say afraid, but who shy away from doing art because they think they're not good enough to do art. Well, that's just wrong. You're not necessarily good enough to sell it. You're not necessarily good enough to make your mother smile when you give her one of your homemade art pieces for Christmas. Maybe she'll smile like, oh, I like that. But that's completely different. Creating a work of art doesn't need to have a purpose. It especially doesn't need to have a commercial purpose. And trust me, if you make a work of art for your mother and give it to her on Christmas, I'm pretty sure that even if it's bad, she's going to appreciate the gesture because so few of us do that nowadays. Now, creating a work of art, painting, poem, song, whatever the medium is, there's some satisfaction to that, even if you're bad at it. Also because it's a good way of kind of stimulating your creative juices. When the corona pandemic wasn't that new, I was sitting in our kitchen and I thought, da 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 da. And then this melody, like, maybe I should do something with that. Then Sue and I talked it over. Not so much the melody, but like what would be fun for a song. And we came up with a few ideas. And then out of that came a song that I actually wrote and performed and threw up on Facebook. It was terrible. It was somewhat catchy, but it was bad. It was badly produced. I sing not that well, and it wasn't exactly a masterpiece of lyrics either. But it was fun, and it got me juiced up, which is what this is all about. It got me recharged. This is something that some people will say, no, this is bad. Others will say, I love to, but I can't. my experience with taking short naps at work, really, really good. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward. When I was in high school doing my final exams half a lifetime ago, more than half a lifetime ago, then I had an English exam. A written English exam was one of the exams I had. And imagine you're sitting in this big, not an auditorium, but this big like cafeteria space, and everybody's sitting there with their own desk and their own computer, not laptops. This was 1998, with our big like desktop PCs that we've brought in and printers and so on. And there's a 5-hour written exam. And I remember looking at it, you had to write some sort of essay stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, oh, I'm tapped out. I'm tired. I've got nothing. And then I put my head down on the table, and then I let myself drift off to sleep. And I caught about half an hour of sleep. And then I woke up, and then I spent, I think, 1.5 hours or so doing the thing, because I was pretty decent at the subject. And then I left, and I got the second highest grade possible. Now, the reason I tell that story is not so much to say, ooh, see, I was good at English in high school, da-da-da-da-da. No, the reason is to say that for many people, taking that nap at that point, it wasn't something they chose not to do. It wasn't even something they considered as an option. And I've been in that situation many times, especially when people are not just dead tired or exhausted, but they have a deadline. Just saying, you know what? I've got nothing right now. Taking a nap will recharge my batteries physically and mentally, and especially creatively. So if you have that possibility, I actually advise doing this when you can. Not like a 3-hour thing, 3 hours from deadline, but half an hour, 15 minutes, sure. Set an alarm if you want to. If you can, shift location. Tons of good stuff in there. Whether it's going skiing if you have that option, or hiking, or riding a bike, or going on a boat trip, or just moving to another room, just facing another way can make a big difference. So if you can, shift location. If you're kind of, if you're all out, shift location. There's a lot of inspiration and stimuli in new surroundings. Number 10, shift reality if you can. Now, I'm not talking about do some drugs, man. No, that's not where this is. When I say reality here, I mean go somewhere where people look differently at the world, where their priorities are different, where their worldview is different. Whether it's going to a seminar with Tibetan monks or it's going to a party, doesn't matter that much. Find somebody who's part of a different reality. I know we're all part of the same consensus reality, yada, 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 but somebody who looks at the world differently than the space you're in right now. Maybe go hang out on the street. Maybe stop hanging out on the street. Change your reality just a little bit. Damn stimulating. Number 11. This is something that sometimes surprises people when I say that I'm actually a super kind of structure guy. I do all sorts of chaotic stuff, and I do all sorts of new things. I experiment all the time, but I'm actually pretty structured when it comes down to it, and I have a pretty structured kind of mindset. And one of the things I do sometimes to get things flowing is like, okay, I've got nothing, and then I organize what's there. Spreadsheets and kind of small Post-its or digital Post-its, or putting stuff in boxes and visualizing things or writing stuff down, organizing what's there. That can be a great way of coming up with new ideas, because once you're looking at it, once it's not just like a bunch, a heap, then it's there. Then you're like, oh, here's some arrows. We can connect this. We can go there. We can do this. So that's a way to go. Number 12, the opposite one is, of course, you can organize the future instead. You can say, I'm writing a book, something I do from time to time. And then you say, what chapters do I want? You don't have them yet. You're not taking your text and kind of making the chapters. You're putting together the content skeleton. It's something I do when I'm preparing a presentation. I'll put together the content skeleton, then I'll fill it out later. Organizing the future in kind of easily understandable bullet points or blocks or whatever you want to do is also a pretty good way of getting you some new creative juices. Finally, and I know this can sound a little bit desperate, because who would want to ask anyone for help, right? Well, the reality is there are tons of people you can ask for help. You can ask professionals for help. This is some of what I do for a living, help people with new ideas. You can ask people you know for help. friends, family, loved ones. You can ask people you don't know. One of the magic things about the time we live in is that it has never been easier to ask a stranger for help. Go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook. I'd advise LinkedIn, but that's because that's where I that's where I am currently. Write to somebody. Find somebody you think, oh, that person might be interesting. And then say, hello, dear, blah, blah, blah. I've looked at what you do, and wow, I'm impressed. I have this thing. I'm tapped out. You seem to be somebody who knows how to deal with this. Do you have 30 minutes to talk with me? Do you have 20 minutes? Can you spare 3 tips? Anything. As long as you're respectful and kind, well, a lot of people will gladly help you. Gladly. Try it out. Now, the thing to remember here at the end of this is that we're all different. Some of the stuff I've said, you probably said, yeah, of course I do this. Who doesn't? Well, you'd be surprised. And some of the things you're like, oh, this doesn't work for anyone. What is he talking about? Again, you might be surprised. The devil is in the details. And I'm going to leave you with that. That's the most important thing of this. It's so easy when you don't know a thing, whether it's meditation, whether it's Bollywood movies, whether it's computer games, I don't know, therapy. If it's something you don't know that well, if it's something where you're like, I've never tried it, I've heard of it, maybe I've tried it once or twice, then you will have this mistaken idea that you know what you're talking about. I've so often had people come and say, well, Klaus, I tried this thing, whether it's role-playing or whether it's reading a certain kind of book or watching a documentary, whatever it was. Again, practicing mindfulness for 5 days, 5 minutes in a day. And they're like, I tried it and I don't like it and I don't need that. Yeah, I tried that. But the theory, the reality is that's just, for many people, that's just crap. Imagine some of the things we all know well. Writing, movies, books, music. Imagine somebody coming to you and you say, yeah, you know what relaxes me well? I put on some soft music. I've got these Bangladeshi tunes and they really relax me. And then the other person says, yeah, music. I mean, I tried music. I've heard 6 songs and I tried music. It doesn't work for me. Music doesn't work for me. Like, oh, okay. Wow. So what did you try? Well, there was this Finnish death metal band and I tried 6 of their songs and didn't relax me at all. So music, not doing that. I'm like, yeah, maybe you tried the wrong music. No, I've tried music. I know what I'm talking about. And this is everywhere. Doesn't matter what tip you give people, what sort of method you use. If you're not willing to accept the fact that when trying a thing doesn't mean you necessarily know a lot about the bigger picture that thing represents or that thing is part of. Oh, I don't like yoga. Oh, I don't like French movies or just movies. Oh, I don't like physical activity. I mean, where do we set the lines here? In general, the closer you are to something, the more you know about something, the more nuanced view do you have. And the further away you are, the less nuanced it is. European. No European uses the word European. Oh, we're Europeans. No, you're Bulgarian maybe. You may be a Norwegian. Could be a guy from Spain. But we don't have this thing that all Europeans do this, which is a classic of speaking with Americans. And funnily enough, the Americans, they say, oh, but Americans, it differs whether you're from Idaho or you're from California or from Florida. It differs. The further we are from things, the harder it is to grasp nuance. And when we're trying out new things, especially things like, in this case, how to recharge our creative batteries, it's so easy to try out a thing and say, no, I tried it. And what you've tried is one tiny sliver of that thing. And then say, tried that, cutting off that whole block of whatever it is. Oh, I tried the thing about changing locations. I went for a walk around the street, didn't work, so changing locations doesn't work. And then you have your friend who's like, yeah, I'm coming to you live from this mountain I just climbed, and it just recharged me like nothing is done in all of my life. Oh, Oh, that's also within recharging. Oh, okay, I get that. That's also part of changing locations. So what I'm saying with this is the devil is in the details. We're all different. And the only thing that's going to teach you what works is just keep trying. That was supposed to be a drama, but I hate it when my kind of clicker malfunctions. We'll do it again. Just keep trying. Better. Thank you.